Hi everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on building a positive employer brand post-COVID. There's no time like the present to start re-looking at reframing your employer value proposition as you move beyond COVID and into 2021. Timing has never been good for me to be able to share these wonderful insights that I have accumulated over this rather roller coaster ride of a year. Having attended World Employer Branding Day in the virtual space for 2 days last week, where Employer Branding South Africa was nominated or was invited as the country partner for Africa, together with my hosted company, Sanlam, one of the largest financial services organizations, where Dr. Matete Laruta and I positioned the topic on embracing employee well-being in Africa, our diverse rainbow nation. We had the pleasure of addressing 800 employer branding leaders from across 50 countries. In addition to this, I've been conducting a few webinars where I've had the pleasure of panelists chatting about the various capabilities that they have put into place in managing their workforce environments, especially when it comes to the essential services and essential goods that they've had to deliver on. So, without further ado, I would like to continue by saying, yes, we've had to pause during the year and we've had to look at our workforce environments and take stock of what needed to be done. We've had to reflect. We've had to look long and hard during these various recovery phases or pandemic phases. And now we are sitting at a stage of having to reframe. Companies have in fact already started reframing their environments to address what they are going to be doing in this new world of work. The good thing is that we're sitting with a lot of research, we're sitting with a lot of data, a lot of case studies, and a lot of success factors that are coming through. Yes, we do not have a compass, we do not have a playbook, and we do not have a roadmap. But with these wonderful insights and success stories, there's definitely a lot that we can hang our hat on. COVID has brought about an opportunity to accelerate, and there is no turning back to how we used to work. The focus has been very much on employee engagement and the experience life cycle of each and every individual within the workplace. Also, the need to reskill, upskill, and develop internal talent right across the companies in order to meet the transformed workplace environment. Reframing talent acquisition strategies have also been necessary as the external talent market have looked for various and are still looking for various needs and requirements. Technological advancements have obviously also accelerated, with people needing to pull on technology to be productive in a remote working from home environment. Virtual upskilling and remote learning has become necessary in order to be productive in these remote, in a remote workplace. And of course, re-engineering of the employer brand and value proposition is also needed in order to address the changing need and requirements of employees as well as candidates externally. So if we have a look at building a positive employer brand, it always starts from within first in order to engage and retain your top talent. The hot focus area at the moment is really about how are companies migrating their employees back into the workplace. How are they re-onboarding them? And how are companies using a hybrid environment where employees are partially at work and partially at home, whilst continuing to deliver on their skills and their duties? What came to the forefront was the fact that one employee situation is not the same. Personalization is so essential. If we have a look at how your underrepresented communities might not have a conducive working environment within which to work. They might have elderly parents at home or children that are possibly still homeschooling or having to do their studies at home, or the technological connectivity and the fiber connection might not be conducive either for people or employees to work from home. The sensitivity around working from home needs to really be taken into play before you can expect employees to deliver. An employer value proposition is in fact meaningless if it doesn't address the employee personally, and it will obviously land on deaf ears if it's not relevant to them. Polls and research are confirming levels of anxiety still at an all-time high, with mental and financial stress being impacted on, as well as fatigue. And this is what employees are looking for in terms of support. So what key drivers are necessary to build your employer brand internally from within? Let's first have a look at some of the statistics that are pulled from the Mercer 2020 Talent Trends Report. The interesting factor is that 80% of executives have confirmed that no physical office is going to be needed. This came through so strongly, not only in the Mercer report, but the Gartner and the Forbes report as well, where they confirmed that work can be done everywhere and anywhere. It was cited that 58% of companies mentioned that they are contributing to work from home subsidies and tools in order to make it that much more comfortable for employees to work from home and conducive to work from home. And in fact, executives within the same study confirmed that there's been a 76% increase of employees working from home since the pandemic struck. When we talk about flexibility, we need to actually define what flexibility is. And this is obviously important when building your value proposition, because flexibility means different things to different people. And it's really about the what. So what needs to be done? What work needs to be done? Is it project-based? Is it once-off skills? Is it job content? And who is actually going to do it? Is it going to be your full-time people together with outsourced freelancers or contractors? When is it going to be done? Are you going to schedule certain timeframes for this, or are you going to have compacted weeks? And how is it going to be done? Is it going to be in a virtual environment, or are people going to come together in teams to collaborate partially in the workplace and partially at home? So flexibility needs to be determined accordingly. The working from home challenges have sparked certain areas of concern. Some have been the level of trust. When we talk about trust, you've got employees saying, please, to their line manager, trust me that I'm going to be delivering on what is required of me. It's not about when I work and how I work, but the fact that I will be delivering. Leaders are having difficulty in putting that trust into place, really trying to understand whether employees at home are actually more productive than in the workplace. Boundaries are also being questioned as well, because employees are saying, am I doing enough? And in fact, are working sometimes over the hours that is required of them in order to deliver. They are nervous that they are not actually delivering up to expectations. And what's happening is they are reaching burnout without being able to shut off between the workplace environment as well as the home life. There's also a question around inconsistencies across roles, because certain positions are conducive to having a work from home flexible strategy in place, but certain roles are not. If we think about people that are working in a plant environment or in a manufacturing environment, obviously those roles cannot have the flexibility that a functional support position can offer. So these are the challenges that are coming forward. Cultural alignment to company values has been on the decline, and this is a concern for many organizations. The focus has been very much on crisis management, and companies have had to relook at how they align their cultures accordingly. This is changing slightly, and I'm saying that because with organizations starting to migrate people back into the workplace, it's starting to trigger that feeling of connectivity and the re-nurturing and fostering of values and beliefs and cultures again by coming back into the workplace. Companies are having to make deliberate efforts not to replace, but almost create a similar type of connection in a virtual space, understanding that discussions around the water cooler and ping pong tables and socializing that way in the canteens and in the coffee shops and that is a thing of the past. They are cultivating culture by initiating activities like introduce your pet, introduce your family member, cocktail evenings, quizzes remotely, yoga classes remotely, and all of these creative activities in order to reunite the employees culturally. Recognition has been highlighted as a big factor when practicing cultural alignment, and this doesn't cost a thing. Recognizing the values being played out is not necessarily only by leaders, but employees as well. Reinforcing of this culture can work quite nicely by employees starting to vocalize what has been happening remotely in terms of the behaviors and values and beliefs they have been practicing, and ensuring that it actually is published within the internal communication systems to the rest of the workforce. There's no getting away from the fact that with reinforcing of a culture, it definitely impacts the employee engagement that much better. Continual sharing of examples of how employees are actioning the core values obviously assists with connecting people to your brand, and this needs to continue. Whilst communication was very, very elevated and amplified at the beginning of the COVID situation, there are companies that have been consistently communicating in the public space, but also internally, with regard to how they are managing the employee workforce and what they are doing to make their employees feel comfortable and connected. This needs to continue long after the post-COVID pandemic. And this is definitely setting companies apart from the rest. And what comes to mind is the Brian Chesky situation, the CEO of Airbnb, where he put out into the public space a heartwarming communication, a formal heartwarming communication, not only to customers, but to candidates, employees, and all external stakeholders on what he was doing with regard to laying off employees and how uncomfortable he was feeling and how saddened he was. So this in itself shows you the authenticity that many of the brands took upon themselves to expose. Communication needs to continue across all levels, not only with line managers to employees, but CEOs in town hall situations. Cross-functionally, HR and marketing have been working very closely with, cross-functionally, marketing and comms have been working with HR in articulating the employer brand and the values and the culture and actioning the behaviors that they, and what actions they've been putting into place when it comes to the well-being of employees. Understand that employee engagement is not once off. It's a daily activity and it needs to speak consistently and continuously to the core values. It's important that examples are provided continuously. This kind of thing you can't fake. It's unique to your organization. Many people are finding it very difficult to make the mind shift into the new norm. Social acceptance and collaboration is what is needed in order to make the shift for every employee within the organization. Mental and financial well-being and support is the other factor. And many companies are providing the dedicated support and employee assistance programs that are required in order to protect not only the physical, but the social, the financial, and mental well-being of employees. In fact, 70% of companies have reported implementing psychological counseling for employees for stress and anxiety. And in fact, 64% of companies anticipate a change in their health and benefit strategies in response to the COVID breakout. Another thing is companies have had to make a concerted effort to establish boundaries when it comes to putting practices, workplace practices in place in a remote environment. And a typical example is the fact that you might have a line manager who is happy to work through the night and at weird hours. And he is emailing an employee. He needs to manage the expectation of the employee that that person is not going to be penalized if they do not respond at that unearthly hour. This is the kind of workplace practices that need to be put in place, especially in a remote environment. Many companies have in fact brought financial advisors into the workplace in order to assist employees with managing their budgets and managing how to best work with their finances, especially if their hours are shorter and their pay is less. I'd like to reflect on this slide from the World Economic Forum, which confirms that 1/3 of jobs will be transferred by technology. This is quite thought-provoking because while you have 85 million administrative jobs being replaced, you've got 97 million technological ones that are going to take over. At the end of the day, we've got an aging population that is slowly moving out of the workplace. And we've got a new emerging set of generations, Generation Z, the millennials coming in fast and furiously. And they have got different sets of needs and requirements. It's essential to understand this if you are going to start engaging and retaining these individuals. With this comes the fact that the likes of these individuals are looking for ongoing learning, reskilling, right skilling, and being able to align with how companies are transforming their workplace environments. This is not only evident to the emerging workforce, but also the workforce that is at play at the moment. It's not only becoming important for employers, but for employees as well in order to remain relevant. The alignment of technology and skills is necessary really to transform the workplace. And in fact, the #1 top transformation challenges is the lack of workforce capabilities and skills. 41% of executives are investing in future learning and workforce reskilling because they see this as the biggest return on investment. And in fact, it's quite interesting to see that skills are now being highlighted as the new currency. It's a #1 top priority, as I said, for employees, being able to learn skills and new technologies. And this is what they're looking towards in their employers. With this comes your career advancement. Employees are feeling very vulnerable at the moment, especially with the new technological era hyping up through the pandemic. And they're really nervous about being replaced by technology. So they are asking for a clear understanding on what their career path is going to look like, how they are going to be right skilled in order to transform with companies as they move in to the next norm. Companies are also mobilizing employees internally. They're upskilling, cross-skilling according to the workplace demands and not so readily retiring as they used to. Rewards and recognitions are attached to learning and upskilling. And companies are focused strongly on incentivizing employees to start delivering on skill set that assists with the bigger company objective as well. They're starting to rethink pay for performance and replacing it, in fact, with pay for skills or reskilling. But this is obviously important that it aligns with your culture. It must not become problematic. A people-centric leadership approach is also essential for many, many people. And I'm talking employees as well as the external candidate market when they look towards an employer of choice. Leadership styles have changed dramatically, and they really were put to the test during the pandemic, especially with employees working remotely. Behavioral soft skills have taken huge center stage, and employees started looking for skills such as emotional intelligence, patience, empathy, innovation, all of those good things. And they were calling on leaders to exercise that more so. The mind shift of leaders have also changed dramatically. They cannot walk the floor like they used to. And managing their teams in a remote digital environment has taken a lot of getting used to. The focus has been very much on them getting around the fact that they need to hold employees accountable versus micromanaging. And employees are asking that of the leaders, and leaders are saying, I'm finding it a bit difficult to shift that mindset. But it is happening. The shift in new age talent and technological advances brings about a whole new leadership attribute, as I say. And it is only advancing more and more as we work in a virtual environment. So now that we've spoken about employee engagement and employer branding and reinstilling and re-engaging employees in order to retain them internally, let us talk about how you're positioning your employer brand to attract external talent. Employer brands have been in the spotlight, as we know, for a while. And many companies have either been looked upon as good employers of choice or not so good. The external talent needs have also shifted, and it's important to understand what the external talent market is saying. Passive candidates are not readily wanting, and employed candidates aren't readily upping and moving to other employers. They need to really understand what value proposition is on the table. They will have a reluctance if they feel that their stability and their security is going to be threatened in any way. So they need to know that your value proposition is strong enough for them to make the shift. The technological and the virtual environment has opened a global, diverse talent ecosystem and has broken down all boundaries. The flexibility as well in which people are able to work and the remote virtual environment has provided companies with an opportunity to access high demand skills that were once out of reach. Agility to plug in on-demand talent markets in an alternate workforce is becoming a reality for many companies. And in fact, again, the Mercer 220 global report confirms that 77% of executives say that in the next 3 years, most of their contingent workforce will be replaced by the alternate workforce. Soft skills, as I say, are the new power skills. And it's just as important to have good, strong power skills as degrees and technical skills. This is coming to the forefront quite strongly in many organizations' job briefs, saying that they need to have the peace of mind that people have got the problem-solving ability and interpersonal skills and empathy and ability to career, develop themselves, etc. So when recruiting from the external candidate market, it is essential to see that they have got what it takes from the soft skills perspective as well. So reconfiguring your employer brand, your employer value proposition and value chain really begins with companies starting to reframe their talent management strategies in order to understand what skills and competencies are required before they start building their employer brand. Once established, companies are then better positioned to start identifying their key segment markets, talent mapping, and looking at the personas that are going to get them to fulfilling their talent market strategies. This could be anything from a specific generation they're targeting, future fit skills, or even diversity and inclusion. Understand that you cannot be everything to everyone, and you need to therefore ring fence which talent segments you are going after before you start packaging your value proposition. Whether it be, as I say, for your Gen Zs who want purpose and meaning, or whether it be for any other generation that you're looking to attract. You need to also build trust in your employer brand through upfront honesty and transparency. This is so essential. Companies are always wanting to show the best side, to utilize the traditional approach towards the traditional approach of employer branding to actually woo candidates. But in these times, this does not work anymore. We are living in different times, and it is essential to not mislead your audience. Rather, do not get quantity, but get quality of individuals that can relate to the kind of culture, beliefs, and values you drive. Capture really what's important and paint a realistic picture. Even if you put your employees on the front line, to generate content that is very authentic and really tells you exactly what it's like to work in your organization. If there's a level of vulnerability in terms of if you fail, we're there to catch you, or your organization allows you to learn through failure or whatever, and we're there to support and support you in all that you do. Those kind of factors need to come to the forefront quite strongly. Then your value exchange, what is it? What are you providing to your candidates out there, and what are you expecting them to provide to you in return? And it doesn't mean, as I say, hard skills and experience. It's also about the culture match and the behaviors and values that you can bring into the organization that's going to foster that social connection. The candidate journey is also important, and the value chain with regard to how you are taking your candidates through their recruitment process has shifted dramatically into the virtual space. And I think we can all vouch for this. It's really the candidate experience that counts. And it's important that if they are going through a virtual technological application process, interwoven needs to be the human touch points as well. You need to integrate the human touch points in order for your talent leaders to be able to articulate the authentic employer brand that you stand for and the value proposition that you promote within your organization. Empowering your local employer brand activators must never stop as well. And when I talk about employer brand activators, if you have a global employer brand, it's essential that each regional employer brand activator is able to articulate how the brand plays out within your region, as well as what you stand for in terms of the value you provide. You either have an opportunity to brand yourself, or people go on perceptions and you are then branded by them. So in closing, what does it really take to build a positive employer brand post-COVID as we stand here today? You need to make an intentional effort if you are choosing to build your employer brand now and into 2021. You need to have someone who is assigned as the custodian. It cannot be a line item on someone's job description. You will see the dividends being paid if this is done correctly, and it does need a focused approach. There's a dramatic shift from what the traditional EVP looks like or looked like. It now needs to hold relevance, and you need to acknowledge the fact that the market has changed. When building your employer value proposition, don't do like every company has done in the past, and that is to create the same employer value proposition, the sea of sameness. Everyone has got similar challenges, so don't replicate what everyone else is offering. Try and be creative and innovative and create a distinct difference. When you look at how you are engaging candidates as well as employees internally, reimagine how different it can be done and look at the experience and the excellence that you can provide within that process from start to finish, that whole value chain and the various moments of truth. Also, don't lose the human connection. Technology is a great enabler, but you still need humans to breathe life into your employer brand. Deliver on your brand promise through all your touch points. You've got technology, social media that can drive your employer brand reputation, but you need people to deliver on it in order for it to grow wings and fly. Our world is changing. Talent's needs are changing as well. Your employer brand needs to change accordingly. Thanks very much for listening to my presentation today. I hope you found it informative, and I hope it gives you something to work with as you start relooking at building your employer brand into the new year. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.